So we got Ted Cruz, you know, somebody who likes to portray himself as somebody who comes more from the working class, but silver spoon boy all the way through his history. And here he is getting a little bit worked up about the fact that that some folks are going to be getting some student loan relief. And let's just play this. I think some people have probably seen this, but let's get this set up real quick.
That there is a real risk if you are that slacker barista who wasted 7 years in college studying completely useless things, now has loans and can't get a job. Joe Biden just gave you 20 grand. Like, holy cow, 20 grand. That, maybe you weren't going to vote in November and suddenly you just got 20 grand. And, if you can, get off the bong for a minute and head down to the voting station, or just send in your mail-in ballot that the Democrats have helpfully sent you, it could drive up turnout, particularly among young people.
I think this clip is really telling. And before we get into some of the ideological things here, let's also remember that these idiots are shooting themselves in the foot with their mail-in ballot shit. Because here in Texas, one of the largest groups that uses mail-in ballots are rural people. And they waged war on that process in the most recent election, and it had a negative effect on turnout of people who are supposed to be their base. So, like, one of the things that's worth reminding folks, and I'm not one of these people like some like liberals out here who feel the need to sort of pit working people against each other based on where they live. I think it's actually very worthwhile for us to see this as a political opportunity, that the right is so damn committed to waging war on people's ability to vote in this society that they're also hurting people who might vote for them and make the point, look, these guys don't want you to vote. Ted Cruz doesn't want you to vote. But anyways, like the reason that's not the reason this got hot. The reason it got hot is because of Ted Cruz. Again, somebody who portrays himself as if he's something that he's not. Ivy League educated, wealthy boy, saying that baristas are slackers. I'd like to see Ted Cruz work in a situation like that. I'd also like to remind him that even like the stereotypical, right, tatted up, Foucault-loving, barista, that is not a good picture of a lazy person. That is somebody who has to get up way before you do. Yeah.
I've been a barista. That's the only period of my life where I was regularly getting up at like 5 in the fucking morning. You work a full shift. You like your hair, you wash your hair. It's like coffee grounds in it. Like you're on your feet the entire time. There's a lot of like rushes and stuff like that. It's a tough job. And yeah, like it's not a slacker job. The problem is it like, I forget the organizer we talked to. I'm blanking on her name, but like she said, like this sort of appeals to a certain type of often like socially liberal person, for whatever reason. And like I fancifully like to think it goes back to like coffee house culture and the Enlightenment, and like this is it's a commercialized, commodity centered, but nonetheless public meeting place.
Yeah,
and it still is to this day.
And again, it shows how paper thin this pivot that we're seeing from the right wing is, where they're now trying to present themselves as like the party of the workers. Because let's just say everything is true here, right? Not about the slacker thing, because that's just ridiculous on its face. But all of these, somebody went and they got a degree and they can't get a job, so they have to work as a barista. Yeah, that is exactly who student loan debt relief is targeted at, right? Is people who went into debt because in this society they push this idea that if you go to college, you're going to get a ticket to the middle class. And as we've realized in our generation, Matt, the reason that college education was so previously, like for people of Cruz's generation, associated with higher income, a higher earning potential, was because there was no reason that the sons and daughters of the rich were able to get all the good jobs for that next generation. And because education was something that was a privilege that was only enjoyed for the most part by the elite, a college degree was a great way to filter out people who weren't a part of that certain kind of social class, right? And now, as
Yeah.
we have made a kind of push in this country, flawed, absolutely, but to have our younger generation more educated, people are realizing, oh, that promise is not as strong as it was made to me, right? Like regardless of what you study or where you go, um,
Yeah.
you know, it's not as strong. So the student loan debt relief, despite the way the right wing is trying to frame it as a giveaway to the rich, is actually targeted particularly with the inclusion of Pell Grants. And like, I don't know, I don't want to spend too much time like having to specify all these things. Also, it's absolutely inadequate. But the inclusion of the Pell Grant extension on this is 100% an indication as to who this money is supposed to go to. It's the people who don't come from wealthy families, who went to school and are now indebted with a degree or without a degree. And one of the things I think the Republicans don't realize is backfiring on them is that so many working people know, either through like it's themselves or people around them, people who went to school, took on a lot of debt, weren't able, didn't graduate, and now have to, carry over and pay off student loan debt in a situation of extremely low wages. So like absolutely insane argument from Cruz. I don't like using the word classist because I think it makes like the capitalist system of exploitation seem like it's a system of like how nice people are to us, but 100% like a like looking down at working people kind of thing, which again like just goes to show like how paper thin the argument of like them being for the workers is.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the advisor to Nixon who said the thing about we're in danger of creating an educated proletariat, and that's dynamite, right? And the truth is, and it cuts against even like Democrat liberal myths about what education does, is capitalists weren't waiting to provide everyone with a great house and great health care and all this stuff for them to be educated, right? Right? It can't provide that. Capitalism will not provide that for everybody. It's a myth that it can. All you need to do is get educated. So what we need to do is decommodify education and decommodify housing and decommodify all these things independently, and not have it be a sort of class sorting mechanism. Do we want to go? We got to go to Ted, right? For another.
Yeah, unless you had something you want to put in before.
I got something after. Yeah.
So Cruz decides he's going to walk this back because he got a lot of outrage about it, rightfully so. And again, it's just as the clip that Matt played earlier of Ted Cruz interacting with people at a rally. Cruz is not very good at this kind of stuff. So this is Cruz trying to walk back his comments.
When we were doing the last episode, and I talked about the slackers who had wasted 6 years with getting a useless degree working as baristas might come out and vote if they can get off their bong long enough to do so. I saw in the register your eyes grow wide as you're like, oh crap. But I also, all right, I want to tap into your Yale education because there is a logical foul.
Again, Tribune of the working class. Two Ivy boys hanging out, tapping into each other's Ivy League education.
That's so funny. I knew Michael Knowles is a failed actor. There's a very funny reel of him on YouTube, but I did not know he was a Yaley.
That these lefties are engaged in. When I said that some slackers are baristas, they translated that into all baristas are slackers.
Are slackers, right?
Which is
just not.
Maybe you could help me out with deductive logic, but I'm pretty sure that second statement doesn't flow from the first. Are there people who wasted years studying utterly useless things, who couldn't get a job afterwards and who are now working as a barista and are slackers? Yes, those people do exist. Is every barista slacker? Of course not. They're wonderful, great people who are baristas, who, by the way, many of whom don't have student loans and are getting screwed by the Democrats because they're saying the guy that studied queer pet literature and has $100,000 in debt because, oddly enough, to reference another podcast, Mickey and Pluto going at it, other than getting a job at Disney, there's not a lot of job market for queer pet literature. when we
So I'm gonna let you go, Matt, but like I do just want to say, absolutely pathetic, by the way, for a sitting senator to have to do a podcast apology like that. You know, like, oh, last week I
Lame.
said something really bad. Like, that's real. Like, not that I hold the office of Senate to be so high, but
Uh-huh.
it really is pretty pathetic to watch that.
I hold the office of right wing fucking podcaster in higher esteem than that. There's no alphas anymore. Rush Limbaugh would never apologize for that shit. What are you doing? Shut
Well,
up.
actually, you're so right. And Ted Cruz is so fucking slimy, and even with himself, that he can't hold on to it. You see, he does both, right? Where he like goes through it again to try to say it again. He gets a little tickly when he says it, a little red in the cheeks, excited
Yeah.
to say the bong line again, and then walks it all back. Right? It's pathetic, like false bravado stuff. But again, that's not the Ted Cruz being a beta is implicit. Um, this
Yeah. You know what? Sorry, one quick thing on that. Like they say this stuff like basket weaving, gender, ethnic studies. Those degrees are fucking minuscule, man. Like I'm looking for the spreadsheet now, there's government reports that convey this information, and it is like 7,000 in ethnic studies, which I would have expected. Even me, I would have expected more than that, given like my Minnesota State University had an ethnic studies department. But these are minuscule degrees. The most student loan debt is for pharmacists.
yeah
And I wonder why. I think probably that has to do with like that's a and it's because like the type of people that go into pharmacy, I think like I mean it's a very expensive degree, a lot of schooling, and like I at least anecdotally, people who don't come from money, but that's a good job to go into.
Yeah, no, I mean that's exactly right, Matt. Like, they want to like create the most unsympathetic character to try to deny something that I think most people implicitly understand at this point, which is that people have been sold this idea that college is a gateway into higher earning potential, and it
Mhm.
just hasn't been. Um, and we're not, as much as Ted Cruz would like it to be, just gender studies and sociology, etc. No, it's people who go and they study the big things that we're supposed to study, right? Like
Yep.
business or chemistry or to be a pharmacist. Like this argument that he's making is absurd on its face, and the fact that he can't even really walk that back is absurd because again, I'm just going to go back to my original statement on the barista thing. There isn't a slacker barista, somebody who is holding a job and
Right.
and working, by any definition, I reckon even by the conservative definition, is like a hardworking American. I mean,
Right. That
like
got
look at,
accepted to college and took out loans to pay for that college.
oh, you smoke weed and you're a construction worker, you're a slacker construction worker. You know what I mean? It's just like they try to do this kind of culture war thing, and obviously, it is amazing that like in this country we started serving cappuccinos, and it has completely blown the minds of conservatives for like going on like 30 years now.
Right. Yeah.
But they try to create this most unsympathetic person, and like even if you take like their caricature, somebody who studied gender studies and now has to wake up at 5 a.m. every day, to get by and are on top of their low wages because Howard Schultz is a nasty motherfucker, and won't pay them for their work. That's a very sympathetic character to me, right? Like
Yeah.
even if they studied like fucking like balloon animal like making in college or something like that, if I were
Yeah.
to hear, oh, you have to pay $500 a month to pay down your student loans on that while working full time, oh, we should do something about like it's absolutely trying to create the good worker and the bad worker, which is the Republican GOP prerogative. To
Yeah.
be fair, the Democrats, I think, do a similar thing with maybe a little bit less fervor, when it comes to working people. But those are what you're going. That's what you're going to get from the two major parties, is trying to turn class issues in this country into culture war nonsense. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Ted Cruz, very pathetic man. Whiny, he will never be president of the United States, thank God. And really, really mediocre podcaster, professional to professional.